Welcome back to Open Line. Tonight we are talking about whether the minimum wage should be raised, and I tell you what, from Facebook to the phone calls, we've ignited something tonight, and we are glad to hear from you. This is Open Line, and this is your chance to be heard. Jason Freeman is my guest tonight, the political director for Local 205 SEIU. Thank you for being here, Jason.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to jump right back to the phone calls and start from the top here. Kim is on the line. Hello, Kim. Go ahead. What do you think?
Hi, Jason. Actually, I was interested in the fact that they're calling minimum wage increase to $15 an hour to be a living wage, but most people don't know that in the fast food industry, there are two minimum wages, a tipped minimum wage for folks who rely on tips as part of their income, and a non-tip for people who do not rely on tips. So if the regular minimum wage is going to $15 an hour, what is the tipped minimum wage going to be?
It's a good question. Kim, thank you. I'm going to put you on hold so you can listen to your TV. You'll be able to hear it more clearly. Jason, what's the discussion surrounding that? And if you could explain those two differences and what that really looks like.
Sure. And I can tell you, as someone who worked in restaurants for 14 years, I'm deeply aware of the tipped employee minimum wage. Right now, $7.25 is the federal minimum wage. But if you are a tipped employee, it is $2.63 an hour. And you are the businesses are given a credit which says if I don't earn enough tips to equate to $7.25 an hour, then the employer does have to make up the gap. But if I make enough tips to equate to $7.25 an hour, they don't. So I would say first, the conversation that we hope is that we would do away with the tipped employee exemption altogether. And I'm going to tell you why, as someone who lived this life for many years. What happens when an employer can pay someone $2.63 an hour is you have things like, I worked at a chain restaurant where they limited the servers to 3 tables at a time. And they would completely overstaff the restaurant so that they wanted you to give the best possible service, so they would limit the number of customers that you could work with, which then in turn limits your ability to earn money as tips. The other thing that happens is when you come into work and the restaurant's not open and you're wiping tables and polishing silverware, folding napkins, you're not getting paid the actual wage you should be getting paid. There are laws in some states that make it so you're supposed to get paid during that time for a minimum wage, but you're working when you can't make tips if there's no customers, and if you're there before the building opens, that's not fair. But the bigger problem is with $2.63 an hour, what happens is, as a tipped employee, your paycheck comes in generally at $0. Because the money that you're earning doesn't even cover the taxes that you owe. And at the end of the year, you end up owing a tax bill. And then you also have the tremendous uncertainty of what you're going to make. Because if you happen to work at a restaurant that's busy, maybe you're going to do better than minimum wage. But if you work at a restaurant that's having hard times or isn't doing that well, you're still legally obligated to make that $7.25. But as we talked about, that's not enough money to survive. And so we hope that there will be no discrepancy between tipped employees. There shouldn't be two different classes of people anyway. And I always used to ask as a server, what does the person tipping me have to do with my value to the employer? And my labor that I give to the employer is the same as in any other job. No one's compelling these people to have to give tips. And so I never understood why one employer who has to pay $7.25 and another employer doesn't. It didn't make any sense to me.
All right, let's go to Barry. He's on the line. Oh, there we go. Barry, are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you, young
lady.
Good. And I do mean that being young lady, and that's a young man there, too. Just let you know, I hope you don't hang me up, because I'm a man that's be 70-year-old tomorrow, if the Lord permit.
Happy birthday.
Now, the thing about it is, I have lived a life of all these years. And to take and correct that young man and anybody else, you keep going up with the minimum wages. Go in the grocery store to every product that you buy and see how much it goes up, and then you take and add it all up. Your $15 and something an hour won't take and meet what that goes up. Or your weekly pay won't meet what that goes up. That means, guess what? You're going to have to give up on some stuff in your life. food possibly, etc. Now, you're talking to a man that's almost 70-year-old tomorrow. I can remember when soft drinks were nickel 6 cents. I can remember when gasoline was anywhere 17, 18 cents. I can remember going to the store with $1 and get a pound of bologna, pound of cheese, a loaf of bread, and have change left. Now, young fella, it's just like this. When Carter was whatever, the gas went soaring plumb out of whatever. And just so you know, I've never been a party member in my life. I'm assuming you're a Democrat and that. But the thing about it is that irregardless what you might be, truth is truth. No matter who is speaking it, if you speak the truth, God knows whether you're speaking truth. Now, the bottom line is you go out here to the farm people and everything, they're going to have to go up on their prices. Because the bottom line is gas is going to go up and everything else is going to go up. Your $15 is a good idea if it could sustain it and all these type things not go up. And one big thing you're not taking and realizing, all these old people that's retired, growing Social Security and everything, theirs ain't going to go up anywhere near what it's going to cost them when they go to the grocery stores, et cetera, and that. Now, it would be wonderful if it was like you'd like it to be, but it won't be. I'm almost 70, and what you're telling people is incorrect. There's consequences. I can remember when minimum wage was somewhere around $1 or so. Yeah, I understand what I'm saying. I'm a living example in that. As a hard-working man from time I was 8, 9 years old, as a kid, I know what's going on in the world. And I can tell you this. In James, I think it's the 4th chapter, very last verse, in whatever chapter it is, there ain't many chapters there, it says, to him that knoweth to do good and doeth not is sin. And I'm going to tell you something, there's a lot of sinning going on in our country today. And I can only pray for you folks. Have a good day, and I pray the Lord will bless you.
Well,
Bye.
Barry, thank you, and happy birthday, Barry, a day early.
Happy birthday, Barry. A day.
We don't need to hear me again. Barry, thank you for watching it, and seriously, happy birthday to you. Jason, I wonder if you have any data on, because a lot of people are bringing this up, is that if we raise minimum wage, the cost of products can go up. It's just going to negate that raise in minimum wage. What about, can you talk about inflation versus what's happened to minimum wage over the years? Because we've talked about when minimum wage has gone up in other states and what's happened. But what about inflation versus minimum wage?
So the first thing I would say is that, one thing about the economy as a whole is it's like a ball of yarn, and it's got a whole bunch of strands coming out of it. And so you can't just say that if you pull one strand, it's going to have an exact, impact on another strand, right? That's just not how the economy works. One change in policy is not going to have a direct impact on prices. So, and the reason that we know this to be true is we're talking about giving people, $15 an hour minimum wage. Jeff Bezos and the heirs to Walmart have gotten a $116 billion raise this year, right? Why doesn't anyone stand up and say, well, prices are going to go up because the CEO got a raise, right? No one says that. And that's because there's not a direct correlation here, right? And what dictates prices is supply and demand. We heard a lot of the same conversation around property taxes, that somehow property taxes was going to increase rent. When the fact is that property taxes went down by 30% and rent continued to rise because people are moving to Nashville, which is creating demand on our housing supply, right? Supply and demand actually does work. A lot of the people who criticize this call it economics 101, that minimum wage will increase prices, but they're leaving out the fact that economics 101 is actually supply versus demand. And what dictates prices is what are the demands on your goods and services. And I could actually argue that if people had more disposable income and there was, they had more money to spend, then that's going to have a positive impact on the economy. More businesses are going to be supported. And right now, I think, I saw a gentleman, like, as I said, again, we have real life examples to look at. I told you earlier that in Seattle, the same exact meal for McDonald's, right, is a little bit higher there than it is here. It's not double. It's a little bit higher. There's still McDonald's in Europe where they have universal health care and they have much higher taxes. And somehow these businesses still survive. And so the idea that we're going to have this crushing impact on everybody because we raise the wages a little bit is wrong. And I think that this is a lot of this for us is about values. If you go back to when Franklin Roosevelt created the minimum wage, which happened in the middle of the Great Depression, which helped creating the minimum wage actually helped bring us out of the Depression because it put disposable income into the economy. And Franklin Roosevelt said, no business which depends for its existence on paying less than living wages has any right to continue in this country. And by living wages, I mean more than the bare subsistent level. I mean the wages of a decent living. And sort of the principle here is people like Jeff Bezos and the Walmart heirs, they have every right to be successful. But their success, their climbing the ladder of success, should not be on the backs of poverty wages.
More than half of the states in the U.S. have a minimum wage above $7.25 an hour. Tennessee, Kentucky, not two of those. But when states have raised the minimum wage, have they done it in a stair-step model?
Yeah, and almost all of these, almost all the states that have done this are doing it incrementally. And the federal government historically has done it incrementally. Tennessee has gone the other direction. Our legislators actually set no minimum wage. Like, they would prefer to lower the minimum wage in this state. And so I do think it's a real philosophical difference between folks that think, there are people in this state that think you should be able to pay people $3 an hour. And we think that that's wrong.
All right, we have to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to cruise through a few more phone calls. Stay with us.